Hang on.
No.
We are live. Had a bit of a heart attack then. Forgot how to use the software.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to Social and Emotional.
It's been a minute, but
Yeah.
we're back.
Yeah, we're back. So the way we typically will operate is that we select a topic for the week. We create a poll. We send the poll out to the students. We get the feedback on the poll, and then we go over the responses. And we get the feedback. What are we doing?
I don't know.
And then we deal with the technical issues as well.
That's right.
You're
That's
gonna mute me at least, for crying out loud.
And then we deal with the technical issues as well. That's right.
Look at this.
That's
Unbelievable.
That's brilliant.
Perfect. Okay. That doesn't happen every week, but that's just a special dose. So this week, the poll topic and the topic for the conversation will be on college preparedness and just kind of attacking it from the angle of making sure students feel less anxiety about the prospect of applying to colleges, looking at colleges, and then everything from the planning process that happens in high school from any age group, but primarily probably the juniors who are starting to think about that now, and even seniors who are starting to, think about the reality of actually going now to the colleges that they've been applying to. So we're going to be hitting on that today. So I'm just going to run through some of the topics that we have hit on. So we have, are you planning on going to college? We had 77% of students polled said yes, 15% said maybe, and then about roughly 8% said no. I feel academically prepared for college. 56% said agree, 29% said disagree, and then 8% were strongly agree, and 7% were strongly disagree. So that's something we should probably touch on there. I feel socially prepared for college. That is 52% agree, 28% disagree, 15% strongly agree, and then 6% strongly disagree. I feel emotionally prepared for college. We have 41% said agree, 40% said disagree, so that's equal. And then strongly disagree is 11%, and then 8% for strongly agree. So again, that's a very balanced poll there of half and half, basically, who either agree or disagree on being emotionally prepared for college, which is pretty significant.
Yeah.
And then I know exactly where I want to go to college. We have 18% strongly agree, 30% agree. We have 37% disagree, and then again, strongly disagree 15%. So that's even an even split about where you want to go. Or so that's common. That's the point of that question, is just to show people it's okay not to know.
Absolutely.
Depending on what age you are and where you are in the high school rankings there. I know exactly what I want to do in college for my major and career path. Strongly agree was 25%. Agree is 43%. So that's a pretty large chunk there. It's about 2/3 who are in the agree category, and the last third is in the disagree. And then topics that they want to hear more about pertaining to college. We have how to choose a college, how to pay for college, how to choose a major, whether you should live on campus or commute, how is college different from high school, how to prepare for college when in high school, and then what do colleges look for in high school students. So there was various interests in that. Plus, we also had an open-ended question that specifically asked them about any questions that they have for us as it pertains to college. So we will be looking at that. All right.
That's interesting results. And I'm sure that within the realm of those responses, you're going to get some that...
Seen but not heard.
Oh, wait, right now?
Yeah.
No, we're good.
Sure.
Yeah, because it was playing there, so it's their end.
Okay.
Yeah, that's picking up this separate stream. I appreciate that. Better safe than sorry, right? So let me just sign it.
Yeah.
So I probably just swore and I don't even know it, but I guess we need a sense of awareness as well to even know, or to be put in that situation and we find out, oh, all right, I'm not maybe as ready as I thought I was. From the outside looking in at a situation that I'm not familiar with, I'll be okay. I think a lot of us hope that we're going to be okay. I didn't do college for too long, but I did enough. And then I rode my bike to college, for the first year. So Yeah, it's and I lived at home. What about you?
I went away and I lived on campus for the 4 years,
Yeah.
and that was pretty much, in my mind, the only option. I
Mm-hmm.
was not commuting.
Yeah.
There really wasn't many options for me to commute to from where I lived at the time. The only thing that was within driving distance was a community college, and so I wound up going to a college that was about 30 minutes away. So, I mean, I wasn't going to make that commute on a daily basis, so I wound up living there. And most of the students on my campus lived there anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can get into those specifics, but I think maybe we could just go through maybe like chronologically what we should be thinking for each grade level, even if we start from like freshman year, and just be like, freshman year, what do we do about college? And then just kind of build our way up to see like where are people and kind of what should they be doing at that point. And then we can get to like the specifics about, you know, the college experience that we may have when we get to those points. So what would you say would be your advice for a freshman coming in and saying, all right, I want to go to college, or what do I need to do to prepare myself for college?
So the big thing about that is like, again, when freshmen come in, they're, I hate to say it, not really as mature. Like they're still trying to figure themselves out. They're still trying to figure out, you know, where they fit in the world, right? We all are probably pretty much over the course of our high school careers. But one of the things that we use at our school is Naviance, and it's a career and college readiness tool. So that tool allows them to go in starting freshman year to start looking at colleges, to start kind of exploring their interest and trying to figure out majors that they want to be introduced to or find more about. And I think that coming in freshman year, the biggest thing is making sure that you're on top of your grades and trying to do as best as you can in all of your classes, and also allowing yourself to get introduced to new things. During our freshman year with our kids, we actually have them start building a resume just so that they can start to kind of keep track of things
Yeah.
that they've done. So that then by the time they get to their senior year, they're adding to it. They're thinking about things that maybe they shown interest in, and that could carry over into a career and possibly into a college major. So I think it is really important for them to at least start learning more about themselves so that they can come into what they want to do.
Right. I do agree that at that point, at that level, at the freshman class, you just need to be aware of your grades. That's your primary thing. You don't want to close doors to colleges from your first year, because all of your grades are equal that count towards your GPA. So you don't want to think that, oh, well, my junior year grades, although they may be more important when they look at it more specifically, but they all calculate towards your GPA exactly the same.
Yeah, and a lot of times, I mean, that's the sad part. And as soon as we go in like the first week of school, and we're like, you know, your GPA started when you walked in the door. You're meeting us today on day 7. Your GPA started 7 days ago.
Yeah.
And it's like hard for them to understand even what that means, because right now it's just looking at grades in a computer system and it means nothing. And then after that first trimester or that first semester's done, they're looking at it and they see a GPA and they're like, oh.
Yeah.
You meant it really did start
Yeah,
then.
and a
You're
class
like, yeah.
rank too.
Right. It's all there right away. So it's like, again, they don't understand it until they see it. And even thinking about athletes, right? Coming in as a freshman, if you want to be a recruit for like a major athletic program, those grades are important. And starting from freshman year, because of the core courses, your English, your math, your science, you have to be on point.
Yeah. And the problem with that becomes, if you're playing a fall sport in your freshman year, you might not be thinking much about academics because you're playing that sport, whether it's volleyball or soccer or football or cheering or something like that. And then you're like, oh, I really wasn't paying much attention to my grades. But the problem I think now, especially with technology, is that they have access to their grade anytime they want, which is a double-edged sword, because yeah, they could be on it, but then they're staring at it all the time and it becomes a fixation. Where I think that's kind of unhealthy at the same time. Like we weren't able to look at we had to, I don't know, the teacher has a grade book.
They wrote it in their grade book.
And then you'd have to figure out the calculations at some point at the end, but we didn't really even know, or we have an idea or ballpark, but they know specifically every single assignment that gets put in, they see the change. So it does work to some degree. But
I think it's a good deal of this should also sit on, especially in a school like ours. So I teach a shop subject. I teach graphic design and 3D animation, and one of the things I get sophomores up until now. I've always had sophomores and seniors, but whatever student and whatever grade they're in, I always ask them, you know, what are your plans? The number of pro athletes I have as sophomores come through this system, and I look at their level of work in class or their attitude, and it's a lot to dial in at once if you're not if your maturity level isn't there, and it's like, oh wait, I gotta behave and do my work and focus and to be able to do that thing I want to do, be it basketball or baseball or football or what have you. But you know, very early on, I always ask my students to if you want to go into a sport, your grades, your other work, your academics, your shop class, whatever it is that you're doing, you need to be focusing on that as well. Bring all of that up. I'll work with you. But if you're not putting in the work there, then it doesn't matter how much work you put in elsewhere for your sport. You're not going to attain it. Yeah. So, and the other thing I let them know is how fast. I remind them how fast each year just zips through, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And next thing you know, they're out of here.
Yeah. And
they're hitting real life. You know, and I hate saying that, real life. Oh, you can be out of here and hit real life, but there's a reality to it. So if they don't get dialed in, then yeah, it's going to be some tears or some busted dreams. So
yeah, I mean, it's not. I don't think it's as dire because, like we kind of begin, everyone's going to be all right. You'll figure something out along the way. It's just as
I agree with that.
It's more about the options that you're giving yourself from the freshman year, because you don't even need to go to college, right? If you have an idea that you want to be a chef or you want to do something different,
you want to go to the trade.
Yeah, exactly. You go to a trade. You might have yourself lined up with a job with you and your family or whatever afterwards, and it doesn't necessarily require a GPA, just graduate kind of thing. But if you want to have options, and you don't want to get to the point where junior year and you're like, oh man, maybe I do want to go to college, but then you slacked off your first 2 years and you made it really difficult for yourself. So freshman year is really more about just getting yourself a decent foundation, and then even from there, see if you want to start dabbling with some higher level classes if you have not already started. So in your freshman year, you might decide to take an honors class here or there and just see what you're made of, to try to challenge yourself and kind of separate yourself academically from different people and surround yourself with people who are more like-minded to your ambitions. So really freshman year, you're just kind of setting the groundwork academically, but you don't need to really be worrying about college per se and where you're going and what you're going to do. You're still figuring things out, and you should allow yourself that chance to figure it out.
And it should be a lot of like management, like trying to figure out how to be like organized and self-management and self-awareness, and like trying to stay on top of things and manage multiple things, the social aspect, the academic aspect, playing athletics, and trying to get yourself to be like more well-versed in a little bit of everything, because you don't know where your road is going to go, you know?
Yeah, and I think if you do that, then you'll have a better sense of awareness of who you are moving into sophomore year, so that you can kind of say, okay, I play this sport, and then or I'm an artist, and I kind of am known now. I feel like I have my crew, I have my sport, I know who I am. I know you got to have a better sense of security, so that you're not trying to accomplish those things in sophomore year. You've already kind of hit that, you've done that kind of stuff, and now you're just going to continue.
And I just want to interject real quick. Even though I said there is a caveat and an opposite side to what I said, so there is a reality of what I said, but the flip side of that is I also tell my students, look, you if school ended tomorrow and you never went to school, you're all going to be okay. You know, you've got some level of being able to figure things out. Obviously, better if you're in school, you're going to be able to reach greater heights and what have you. But yeah, there is a possibility of reaching that thing that it is that you want to do. But a lot of them don't know yet, do they?
Yeah. So moving ahead to sophomore year, what would your recommendation be for sophomore students?
Yeah, so at this point, that's when we start to do the career exploration. It's like, even if you're not at our school, again, we use Naviance, so everything that they need is in one place. We have career inventories that they can do. There's career profilers that they can do. They put in what their interests are, their likes and dislikes, and it kind of comes back with the different career paths that you can choose based on this data that you've input. And it's like at that point we start to ask questions like, okay, you thought that you wanted to do this, but have you ever considered this because this is what came up for you? And you find a lot of students are in that realm where they're like, oh no, like I never even thought about that, but that is something that I'd be interested in. And then it's them going in and starting to do the research about those different majors and trying to figure out what schools have those majors. And again, that's just a lot of research, a lot of time, and hopefully they have older siblings, which is nice.
Yeah.
Because then if their older siblings are going to see schools, they're already starting to talk more about college and seeing them too.
Yeah.
So that part, I feel like sophomore year is really the exploration, figuring out like career paths. What are you interested in? What maybe you want to do? A lot of my kids are like, I know that I want to go to the union. So for me, it's just getting good grades so that when they see my transcript, they're like, oh, you're a good worker because you
Yeah.
kept up with your grades.
Right. And your
We want you
your
on our team.
attendance and things like that
Yes.
too. Yeah.
Yes.
There's certain
So
thing. Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I do agree that sophomore year is an interesting year in terms of trying to, I feel like it's a point where their childlike dreams start to maybe shift into more of a reality sense of like, I've always wanted to do that, but I'm not quite sure if that's now what I want to do. I didn't realize what it entailed, or I didn't realize how much time it would take, or how long I'd have to be in school, or how, complicated the tasks are. I've had students say, oh, I always thought I was going to be involved in, this field, but there's so much public speaking. I don't even like that. It just, the reality sets in about what some of these career paths are involved in. And then they start to say, all right, maybe not for me. And then I think you do have to try to figure out what is your personality.
Yeah.
What are you going to be able to excel in? You're certain things where you say, yeah, you can want to be a doctor, but if you don't like the sight of blood, what are you doing?
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like that would be me. Like there's certain things that I would never be able to do. And I tell my students even now, I said, look, there's certain paths that I'm a public servant. Like I love to be able to help people, and I want to be able to motivate people. I can't be cutthroat. I can't be ruthless. I'm not a shark out there to be able to fight for financial gain somewhere, because that's just not who I am. Like I want things to be fair. I'd be like, what's the fair deal here? I can't, try to finagle my way and sneakily get behind their back and make $1 off, you know what I mean? Like, so I say like, I can't do that. I wouldn't be fulfilled doing that. So I have to kind of stay with what I do. Like, and we do these personality tests with the juniors, and it spits out, this is what you're like, and this is what
like the Holland Code.
Yeah. So it's like, this is what you might be able to do. Like, and it will say you're a mediator, or you're a diplomat. You're somebody who works great with people. You'd be good in leadership positions, or whatever, like motivational stuff. And it'll say, and every time I do it, I might get something different, but they always say teacher is on there somewhere.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Years ago, when I was maybe 15 or 16, I did a test like that, and the counselor, back then, the guidance counselor back then said, actually, I'm not even sure who they were, but they said, would you be interested? And they listed off all these things that I saw other students better than me at, and I was just like, well, these people are better than me, so what chance do I have? I just overthought it.
Yeah.
And I lived in a world of lack where there just wasn't enough to go around. And there is, and there was, but every single thing that I said no to, I did. To a degree that, ironically, I end up teaching the thing that I said that I would never do as a living.
Yeah.
So just funny how it all works out.
Yeah.
But I think that goes to like self-awareness, like you said, like recognizing the things that maybe you're not good at and being able to actually say it. And they do have a little push behind them from parents and family members about what they should be doing, but recognizing that sometimes it's not aligned with the thing that they may end up doing in the future. Yeah. And I even find that my sophomores are already concerned about disappointing their family members for not wanting to be a lawyer, for not wanting to be a doctor, and wanting to pursue dance, so it's like also coming to terms with that and figuring out how you're going to move into junior year, where you really have to make a more of a decision, figuring that out during sophomore year.
And I do think one other thing to add to that is, we're in a technical school. And for our technical students, as well as any student out there, you don't have to pursue the career of whatever your, technical aspect is, like your shop, for example. A lot of students come in, they go, okay, I'm in the criminal justice shop. And then they think they have to do something with criminal justice because they picked that for high school. Like you're not choosing a career path or a major as an eighth grader. Like you just are choosing something that you might be interested in as a basis to just get some knowledge about that subject matter. And whether you decide to like that or not like it, you at least have an answer. And that's good information to know instead of getting to college going, maybe I'll try criminal justice. At least you'll have enough information about it where you say, you know what, I did 4 years of this. I don't really like it that much. I'm going to go to do something else. Or I really do like it. And now I feel confident going into that field.
Yeah, and there's been a few students that have written to me over the years just saying, you know what, doing it for 4 years and going through that rebellious age, and they've kind of shied away from that topic, and they just naturally come back to it because it's that thing that they love and know well. So I think every scenario that you can imagine, it's you're going to find your way. You do not need to know right now that thing that it is that you're going to be, that's going to light you up. And hopefully you do find something that just lights you up inside rather than, you're just doing a 9 to 5 stacking shelves somewhere, pumping gas, And occasionally I've done that, my version of that over the years, just to kind of fill in the blanks. But, it's about paying the bills at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
I also have to say this one last thing because I think then we can start talking about juniors a little bit, but it's like also taking the knowledge, like these shop classes or these career and technical education courses that they're in. Like I have kids that could build a deck for me. I have kids that could electrically wire something in my home when they leave school. So it's like they could go out and they could go work for a contractor and get that as extra cash. People in your class can go and design things and actually sell them, you know? So it's like, all these things, it doesn't mean if you're not planning on doing it after school to just let it go and just like not pay any attention to it. It means take everything that you can and use it or apply it in some other point in life. You could have a house one day, like you'll be able to fix something quickly on your own because you have the skill that you learned so long ago.
Exactly. Yeah.
You
The
know?
penny saved is a penny earned. I mean that you can't underestimate the value of those skills, because you might be paying somebody $2,000 to do something that you could do it yourself. And you're like, oh, I don't see that money in my pocket, but you just saved it. So
I've got a student that just bought themselves a 3D printer, and that's just like an off the wall subject, something I'm a bit passionate about. And now they're doing it and they're designing their own stuff, and goodness knows where it's all going to end up for them. But now they've unrestricted themselves. So I think going to a school like this, at the end of the day, it opens up your mind to the possibilities that, I can learn things. And what the students should remind themselves is that if they were going to a regular high school, they would leave that high school without any technical education, at a career in technical education at all. So then they'd have to start from scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we had, again, just real quick, we have the student that's on Is It Cake right now?
Yeah.
He graduated. He actually would have graduated. He graduated last year, but he was on the show.
Yeah.
While he was instead of graduating, he kind of graduated while he was there, and his sister helps him out. His older sister helps him out with his website, and his younger sister helps out with the business.
That's who you were talking about.
Yeah, he bakes cakes, and he does very well. And he was doing that since he was 16. While he's in high school. So again, like
so good.
And that's not necessarily something that he's not necessarily going to a 4-year college for anything. He can go to a culinary school if he wants, but he went on this show for whatever it is. I think it's 8 episodes.
That's it.
And met with people from around the country.
Yeah.
And bumped elbows with them and learned a bunch of different skills from these people.
Up.
You know what I mean? So these are the things that can happen that, you just kind of go with the flow, and that's why you're kind of like, you'll be all right. But you have to be willing to take those risks too. That's why it's not a one size fit all. We can't tell you this is the way you do it. It's like everybody's path will be different, but you just got to, find your own, your motivation.
I think as long as you keep on taking action and you don't just sit around hoping.
Yeah.
A lot of the students, myself included, when I was that age, I would sit around and wait for things to happen. Yeah. I would wait for life to happen to me instead of taking the bull by the horns a little bit and taking a few leaps of faith.
Yeah. So juniors, what do you got for the juniors?
Yeah, that's like go time, right? So when your transcripts go out, they're going to see your freshman, your sophomore, and your junior grades, right? Junior year is technically the last year that you have to get a boost in your GPA. And that doesn't mean go and take higher ranked classes if you've never taken them before, because that could end up badly. But it means making sure that if college is your plan, or even if it's your option B or your plan B, that you're taking care of your coursework, right? Getting the good grades, making sure you're getting that boost in GPA. GPA. You should also be creating a running list of target schools, reach schools, safety schools that you're like, okay, this target school, this is kind of where I know, like, I want to go. A safety school meaning, okay, if I don't get this place that I want to go to, this is like a backup for me. I can go there. I know I can definitely get in there based on my GPA and these testing scores,
Yeah,
which I
very
have to talk
realistic.
about that I'm going to have.
Realistic opportunity, yeah.
Yeah, and
Expectation.
then of course those reach schools that I have some kids that are like, I want to go to NYU, and then I'm like, I'm sorry, you don't have an NYU GPA, but go ahead and put it in there because there are programs at those institutions that maybe you could be the person that they select, and you end up going there based on that and them trying to bridge the gap and help you to get
Yeah.
where you need to be. So really, junior year is about making sure that you have the grades, also taking any standardized testing that you need to take. And of course, there's been some changes with the pandemic. So it's like there are a lot of schools that are currently test optional. But we are still telling our students to still take the SAT, ACT, only because if you're going for a specific program such as engineering, math, sciences, those all still require you to have the SAT, ACT. So it's like, why not just take it and have it just in case you decide to go into a major that does require it and you're not backpedaling, trying to make it up, trying to get a date when you've already kind of made these decisions.
Yeah, I feel it definitely with in the spring semester of your junior year, you should be taking the SAT and the ACT. I feel like that at that point, I tell my students all the time, like I would say May and June are like your hot months because you're still in school, the iron's still hot. You don't want to wait till the summer necessarily. And you also don't want to take it too early because especially in those math courses, they might not have gotten to all that material yet. So you want to take it towards the end of the year where you have learned all that information that you can get. You're still in school mode. You're not in summer mode yet. And then you get that score. And then from there, you can kind of think to yourself, do I take this again in the fall? Or, you know, if I do take it again in the fall, which area do I want to focus on more? Because maybe my English score is pretty good. I'll focus on my math because they're going to combine the best scores anyway, or vice versa. Or just, and then at that point, you really could start to nail down what colleges you could start looking at based on where you would fit in academically. Because that based on your scores, if you get like an 1100 and you're like, I thought I'd have much higher, then you say to yourself, all right, well, maybe I'm not going to be able to get into those schools that require 1400 or above or whatever it is. So you have to start to get a little bit more realistic about your application process at that point.
And we actually just got a question that came in. Brittany wanted to know, do you take both the SAT and the ACT or just one? And that's actually a really great question. So I have recommended for years that if you have the ability to and you can afford to do it, you take both. But really, and I'm just like about to quote a TV show and I won't do it. But the SAT kind of is the test that is the go-to test for all institutions.
It's always been.
And it's just math and English. When you take the ACT, however, it's multiple subjects beyond math and English. The scores are a little bit different. Yes, colleges accept both. If you get free or reduced lunch at all schools, you're eligible for fee waivers. That allows you to take the tests twice, both of them for free. So it's like, if you have the ability to do that, I would say go ahead and take both.
Yeah, I would definitely say take both twice. That would be, I would say, you know, definitely take them twice.
As long as money's not an issue.
Yeah. And again, depending on what your score is, I guess after the first one, you could determine that. But I would say, you know, second semester or like the spring of your junior year and then fall of your senior year would be good times. But again, you got to think about, you know, when I come back in the fall, what kind of mode am I going to be? Am I going to be senioritis mode, or am I going to be work mode? Am I going to be playing a sport? You got to think about what your schedule is and think when would be the best time for you to be in the right mind to be able to take that and be prepared for it too.
And when it comes to certain students, they actually apply early action to school, not early decision. We don't really recommend that because if you apply to a school early decision, talking about some like decision-making buzzwords, early decision means you're going there. Like once you sign that over, that means that no matter what it costs, no matter if they're not giving you any aid, you are going there. You are paying whatever that dollar price is, and there's no going back from it, or else the other schools may not accept you. So early action is a little bit different than that early decision, because early action just means I'm applying earlier. I have my tests out of the way. So those are the kids that actually end up taking the test in spring and then in summer, because they're like, I want to apply early action. I need to get both of those scores. So that would also be a thing to consider if you're planning on taking the SATs and when you're taking them as well.
But that's usually for people who have more of an idea of where they
Where
want
they
to go
wanna
and all
go.
that kind of stuff too.
Yes.
So they have more of they're giving themselves less time to plan because they have it already set for themselves.
Yes, we have
ahead.
another question from Ashley. Ashley wants to know, what do you believe is the best way to prepare and study for the SAT? Do you want to take it or you want me to go ahead?
Well, you go first, and then I'll sprinkle in.
So again, I am not, a lot of people aren't test booklet people, but you can go on, there's a lot of online resources like Khan Academy. You can go on, you can take practice tests, and just going on and doing it, because a lot of the things that I see kids struggling with, it's the test part, right? The anxiety of taking the test and the pressure of doing well on the test. So it's actually prepping and taking the test multiple times in some facet that could really prepare you.
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate for test taking strategies, and I teach that all year. And especially because they're all mostly multiple choice, except for some of the math questions, you just have to know what types of questions they're going to ask you to become more comfortable and aware of it. So when you see it, you're like, I've done this before. I know what kind of thing they're asking me. I know what the answers are that are not going to be, like how they're trying to trick me sometimes. You kind of got to get into the head of the test makers sometimes and think to yourself, all right, I know that this one's going to be for the people who aren't really reading carefully. They're going to pick this, and really get into the habit of annotating things and writing on the questions and doing the work and just understanding the step-by-step process that goes into it. I think the SATs now is only 4 choices. It used to be 5. So it's made it a little bit easier. You're answering every question. There's certain things you have to do with those strategies to say, even knowing that some of the questions are made to be hard, some are made to be easy, and some are made to be right in the middle. And knowing that number 1, 2, and 3 might be hard questions, and then 8, 9, and 10 might be easy ones, and knowing that I'm not going to become discouraged when I see a question because I'm expecting some of them to be hard. I'm expecting some of them to be easy. So not to kind of either overthink the easy ones because you're kind of expecting it to be difficult, and not spend too much time on the difficult ones knowing that they're all worth the same. So there's things like that, if you look at College Board and you look at, like you said, Khan Academy, you go through different kinds of websites, videos on YouTube even, you can find plenty of strategies, tutoring help that are all for free. And you don't have to go crazy out of your way. And there's a lot of people who spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for their children to get extra help in SATs and ACTs. And yeah, that's helpful. But you don't need to do all that. You're not going to be at a disadvantage greatly if you don't. You just have to have a sense of interest in looking at what your deficit areas are. And that's why I think taking the PSATs is really important, because you're going to get that write-up of everything that you're doing well and then what you need help in. And it'll give you an itemized kind of receipt of you need help in this, you need help in that. And pay attention to your teachers. A lot of times they're giving you the information that you need. They might not be calling it SAT or ACT practice, but it will help you on those things for when you get there.
And I think that Dave just said something great, that now we have to go back, right? Thinking about sophomore and, freshman year, taking the PSATs. If that is something that you can do, if you can afford to take it. Again, if you have free or reduced lunch, it's something that you will get a discounted rate at, and you should be taking that assessment. Our school only offers it like once in October. There are some other schools that give it to all their students. So just make sure that you are taking that as a way so that you can start to assess and prepare for the SAT when you take it in your junior year. Good point.
Does that help, Ashley? Or do you want us to go further into that? Because we could.
I'll tell you what, growing up in the UK and then coming here and not going through the American school system, I feel like an overwhelmed student right now with all the stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I do what's required with the school, and I know a bunch of the colleges that we're kind of, intertwined with, and a lot of the colleges that my students go off to, but a lot of this is so foreign to me, and like, wow, this is deep. Job you have. All this information.
Yeah.
It's fun.
So what else in junior year? I'm trying to think of. So I think at this point in the year, what I tell the students, and correct me if I'm wrong or if you co-sign this, is especially with this break coming up, spring break, they should actually be starting to get feet on the ground at a campus.
Yep.
while it's in session, not waiting for the summer when they're not in session, but
Yep.
getting their feet on the ground and feeling what it's like. It's hard to explain, but I've always felt like when you're on a campus, you'll get a feeling of comfort or like belonging when you interact with the people who are there, when you eat the food, when you see the campus, when you go into the dorms, if you're going to live there, go into the classrooms, maybe into the buildings of whatever your major might potentially be, and you'll get to see, do I see myself here? And you'll get a sense for it.
Again, that list that you should have been compiling, starting your junior year, like thinking about schools, that's the time where you're like, okay, we have spring break coming up, maybe we should try to go to a Montclair, a William Patterson, and a this, right? And it's like actually thinking about that. And some families, they use spring break to go to the ones that are out of state, which I think is pretty cool.
Go to the Boston area,
Yes.
right, and hit all the Boston colleges and Rhode Island on the way back or whatever. You can hit different places.
So it's like the perfect opportunity to start seeing schools. And a lot of people have settled on just like looking at them online. That
Don't
is
do
not
that.
enough.
Yeah, no.
That is not enough. Reading the stats on the school, that is not enough. You need to get on campus. You need to go there.
Yeah, you can't just watch like a Duke game and be like, oh, I'm going to Duke, right? Like you have to actually see what the campus is about, see what the community is like in the area. Like, what is your life going to be like? Are you going to have to take public transportation when you're there? Is everything walking distance? A lot of schools don't allow you freshmen to have cars on campus. So you got to, and if you do have a car on campus, if you're commuting, there's a fee for it. You have to pay X amount for a parking pass for the semester. So there's things like that you have to go there and listen to the people who tell you, go off the beaten path, explore a little bit on your own, and just see what it's like there, and be realistic with yourself to say, do I fit in socially even with the people who are there? Like, because a lot of times the student will say, oh, I'm going to go to school in Florida. Have you ever been there? No. Have you ever been to Florida? No. I'm just going to go. And they just think they're going to go. And I said, do you know what the people are like down there? Do you know what the customs are like down there? Are you going to feel comfortable down there? Are you going to be, because a lot of times you can wind up picking a school that does not mesh very well with your personality, and you can really have a tough time of it. And I've had students who've gone to Ramapo and said they really did not like Ramapo. They just were not comfortable there. And then they've gone to Montclair, which is not that far away, and said, I love it here.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of finding the fit for you and seeing what the culture is. That's just true of anything. If you're going to move to community, you want to see like, what's the culture like? Because like it or not, they're not going to adjust to you, right? You're not going to walk in there and say, I'm going to dictate how everyone acts around here. You're going to have to adjust to the climate of the area, and they're going to tell you like, that's okay, that's not okay. What are you doing? So visiting the schools. And then I would say, how many schools would you kind of be narrowed down to at the end of junior year?
I say your junior year list can actually be like pretty lengthy, but you shouldn't have more than, I want to say like 10.
Yeah, 10's high, I think. So yeah.
No, but there's kids that come to me and they've got like 23.
That's
Wow.
So like for me, I'm like,
Yeah, okay, well,
10
10's fine.
is like fair, because I find that they do cluster. So they'll like,
Okay.
okay, in northern New Jersey, I know that there's these 3 schools. When I go to South Jersey, I know I want to see Rowan, I want to see Ryder, I want to
Yeah.
see. And then when I go out of state, I know I want to see these. So I'm like, okay, like 10 makes sense.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, and when we're thinking about applying, that list shouldn't be that lengthy. But we can talk about that when we get there.
That's crazy. I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. But then you get to, so that's junior year, and there's, plenty of things that you could do there. The testing, you want to start really narrowing down your scope a little bit, and start getting really more realistic, because like you said, that junior year grade point average and your class rank, that you could all start plugging in, and you can use College Board, and it'll spit out schools that are going to be appropriate for you. If you have a major in mind, it'll give you that list of majors as well, the schools that carry that major, the cost of those schools. Now you got to start getting more realistic about those things too, to say, what's going to be my price range? Am I going to live on campus? Am I and you don't have to make that decision yet, but you have to start thinking more realistically about those things. So then senior year comes around.
The end of
go
junior
ahead.
year. So the one thing that's really great is that Common App, which again, for those of you who don't know, it's one application that you get to do. You can apply to multiple schools. You can actually go on the Common App website and you can see which schools are actually associated with it. But Common App actually opens up in August. So it's like at that point in August, you can actually start filling in the questions for the Common App. You can start actually doing your college essay, because the Common App actually posts their essay prompts ahead of time. They're actually up right now. So you can start working on ideas and coming up with something for your essay. You can go on and fill out the information for Common App, start adding schools and answering questions. So it's like during the summer of your junior year, you can spend some time doing that about the schools that you've seen. And now you're like, oh, like I think I am actually interested in it.
Yeah.
Maybe I should do this. So really good idea to do that
Yeah,
too.
the Common App is great because it applies to so many different schools, and then some schools will have their own specific maybe topic, but you could look at that and knock that out too. And you most likely you'll probably touch on that somewhat those essays in the beginning of your senior year as well. Probably do a little bit of that in maybe your English class or something like that. So just something else. But the ideas part is important to think about. And he's also start thinking about who you're going to have write your recommendation letters.
That's
right?
exactly. I was sitting here. I'm like, I was thinking of something, and I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Do you want to talk about recommendations? Because as
Yeah,
a teacher, you
yeah.
guys are asked a lot of the times.
Yeah,
for
a lot
those
of times,
recommendations.
students like to go to the teachers that they've had more recently, and especially with the pandemic happening over the last couple of years, it's going to probably be a flood of people looking at junior teachers just because they haven't really seen their sophomore teacher, and they may not. And then freshman teacher kind of like, oh, I had you so long ago. I don't really remember. I don't know if that you want that to be the case. So a lot of times they go after the junior teachers, but you have to remember that you have to create some type of relationship with the people that you're going to ask. It can't just be an academic thing because they're going to see your academic resume anyway. So it has to be, who are you as a person? And if you're just sitting there collecting dust in the class each day and they don't know anything about you other than what your grade is, what are they going to write about you? And also what kind of, advocate for yourself? Were you in class? Did you participate? There's a lot of things. I'm telling you what, right now, I'm not going to have a very long list this year. Probably many people are not going to ask me anyway. That's okay. But even the people who ask me, it's going to be a small list, and I'm completely fine with that because
At the
there's not a lot of
beginning,
people.
at the beginning of the year, I have a very blunt conversation with my students, and I say, if you want me to write a letter of recommendation, I need to see you doing the work. If you're going to be a goofball in class, don't come to me.
Yeah.
I need to see you putting in, because our names go,
Yeah.
and when they arrive at that college and they continue to be that goofball, who wrote that? Oh, that's that Jones.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
hold him
Or
in
they
high
came
regard.
from that school. They could be like the
Exactly,
school too. And it's
exactly.
not a good look. So yeah, you want to think about the people who can write your best recommendation of whether it's coaches, counselors, teachers, employers, whoever it is, obviously not a family member. But you're thinking about 2 solid recommendation letters and then go from there. And you want to ask them in person, and you want to follow up, and you want to give them ample time and let them know. A lot of teachers want to be asked before the end of the year so they can write it over the summer.
Yeah.
Because then they're going to have new students coming in next year that they don't want to have to deal with writing your letter in the fall when they have new students coming in as well. So give them as much time as you possibly can instead of waiting last minute. Because I'll tell people, if you want one, you got to ask me before the end of the school year. And I'll get every year people ask me in the fall, oh, I was a little bit embarrassed. I didn't know if I was like, too bad.
It's too late.
Yeah, I'm not focusing on you now. I have a whole batch of new students who need to learn how to write, so I'm not dealing with this now. You had your opportunity. So, and again, in realizing that some people will go the full length to help you out, and they'll say like, I'm getting you into this school. And also realize, what school are you applying to? And is there anyone that can help with that specific school? Oh, I have my math teacher went to Rutgers and I want to go to Rutgers. Maybe my math teacher can help because they're alums there, versus somebody that you're just like, maybe this person can help,
But I think that the other thing is also like realizing if you know what you're going to school for example, if you're going for engineering, it's really critical that you get like a math teacher or science teacher or someone that is kind of connected to that. Like if anyone's going for the performing arts, hopefully you're picking someone, your CTE teacher, who can kind of reinforce that. If you're not sure of what you're doing, again, an English teacher is always the go-to because that's something that's important, an important skill no matter what you're going into.
Yeah.
So I know that you guys get bombarded with that. Sorry.
Yeah,
But
thanks.
they're great go-to people for
But they also
letters of
think of us as good
recommendation.
writers. That's the other thing.
They're like, you can showcase me. Please showcase me.
You
What,
should-
on
adjective.
on average, how many letters do you write, do you think, a year?
A typical year, it could be somewhere between like 20 and 25. But like last year, or actually 2 years ago, it was great. I was said yes to about 25, and then on the final exam, about 15 of them cheated. So then I cut them all out and I went down to 10. And I just said that was stupid. All you had to do was just not cheat on the final exam, which counted for nothing anyway, basically.
Yeah.
and there's going to be, I have a list of people who I won't write one for this year too. That's growing by the day.
Yeah.
So again, it's not, if I do something for somebody, it's going to mean something, and it's going to
Not
be
just going out to
yeah,
everyone.
Yeah, I'm not generically writing to who it may concern. Please let enter name here.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if they want that, they can go to somebody else, but that's not necessarily going to help them.
It's tough. It's a tough dilemma. I've come across the occasional letter that all you can write is about their character at the end of the day, because there's not much, it's without calling out in specifics, but just not doing the work in class, not meeting the required to-dos during the months, and to be able to write something that's worthy is tough.
It is
tough at times.
I have the students meet with me and write something up and give me some information. I have them reflect on what they did for my class and stuff like that as well. So it's not just me creating it, I'm kind of working with them to say, like, what did you do best in my class this year? Like, what do you think showcased your work the most? Tell me about a time where you showed good character, whatever. And they have to kind of reflect on it. If they can't do it, then what do you want me to say? You can't even think of it for yourself.
I actually have another question that just popped up from Ashley. Ashley, thank you for your participation tonight. I want to ask Mr. Ritchie a question.
Oh boy.
I have an interest in real estate and business. Do you necessarily need to go to college for real estate?
No.
And do you have any advice on that?
Real estate, I had my real estate license, so I can speak on that. You don't need to have it. You just, I think as long as you're either a certain age or high school diploma is all you need. And then you take a class that's 75 hours. I did it in the summer over the course of a week. And then you take a test. That's just like a real estate license test. And then you just have to find a broker that will put you under their wing, that kind of, you work for them. And then you go from there, and then you have split commissions with the broker and all that kind of stuff. And they'll kind of help you a little bit with getting all the accreditation to the different, area that you might be servicing, and the website you have to kind of pay certain dues for and stuff like that. But
And you renew that yearly?
Yeah, you have to renew that. Yeah, I think it's yearly. And then the websites you use to get the information out there is, I think, quarterly. You have to pay for that as well. So to be able to get the NJMLS, or then there's the GSMLS that's different than that, and depending on if you want to work in Bergen County exclusively or Bergen and Passaic. There's a lot of different elements to it, but again, that's something where then you have to get like the lockbox information so that you can get that. So there's a lot of things you have to kind of pay. So it doesn't really work out well unless you're actually making money with commissions and
Or you're spending money to do it.
And it really is something that's difficult to get started with, because a lot of people, you're talking about a lot of money involved. So unless you know somebody, it's going to be kind of hard, because they're going to be like, I'm not using you. You don't even know anything. I'm going to use this person who just sold 100 properties last year and helped buy 100 properties last year, because this is important. This is hundreds of thousands of dollars I'm dealing with here. And you need to kind of know what you're doing and know the safety precautions about things. And there's little things, even nuanced, like never park in the driveway. Like things that you wouldn't even think about, because you don't want someone ever blocking you into the driveway.
Yeah.
It's someone that as a risk, a danger. So you always see them park in the street, and you're kind of like, well, it's a long driveway, just park in the driveway. It's like, I'm not parking in the driveway, leave, go in with other people or have other people, certain things that, that you can do. And then you specialize in certain areas. But that's something that you got to have the stomach for it. Like I didn't stick with it because, like I said, I'm not a killer like that when it comes to that. I'm like, what do you think is a fair price? And I'm like, they're just BSing me. I'm like, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, yeah, you can make money doing it, but I'm not enjoying this. And then from a business perspective, it's kind of the same thing. It kind of goes hand in hand, I guess. Like you have to be a little more cutthroat with that. But, I would say if you did want to do real estate, you could certainly get into that and do very well and build your own team over time. But I think that the way to go is to get the broker, be the broker, because then you're not splitting commissions with anybody. You're your own boss.
I almost, because of the digital media aspect, I almost did 3D renderings of homes, just going with a camera for real estate agents, just so that they could have, you could do that with your phone these days. They're so advanced. But
well, that's the other thing too. There's a whole team you have to start creating with who you're going to get to be, work with as far as mortgages, or who you're going to get involved with as far as like, who's going to do the inspections. Like you kind of you have to create your own kind of team of people to say, I'm going to use this lawyer, use it, because they're going to come to you and kind of ask, who would you recommend for this, this, and this.
And what do you think about the housing market anyway right now with the way
Seller's market?
Yeah. So
Sellers
don't you think there's probably, and not to talk anyone out of any of their,
And I was going to say, Ashley,
dreams.
this is not a deterrent. They're not trying to stop you from doing that.
No,
if
no,
that's
no.
what you want to do.
No, one of my best friends does it. And he's killing it. So
How long did it take for you all to know what you wanted your profession to be?
That's a question from Brittany.
I fell into teaching, but I've done many other things. From college, I was an offset printer, and worked on printing presses, and then from there, I've always been an artist. So yeah, I just did a lot of darkroom work, and just one place to the next to the next. I did a lot of fill-in jobs over the years. I sold timeshare. I've sold vacuum cleaners. On the other hand, Dave, have been a bit of a cutthroat when it comes to
sell those vacuum cleaners.
yeah. Kirby vacuum cleaners.
Yeah. Did they suck?
They did.
Oh, woof.
I'll be here all week. Try the bill. But it's funny. I've said this before in other shows, but I've just very much allowed life to happen, and I just always kept my eyes and ears open, and just kind of I've sold mobile homes. It's just I've done a lot of different things.
Renaissance man.
And it's been interesting, and a bit of a gobsmacking moment the moment that I realized, oh crap, I'm going to become a teacher. But just kismet and all that other stuff is just, life happens.
What about you, Alima?
I always wanted to be in the helping profession. I was an English teacher first, and then transitioned to being a counselor after going back and get my master's. I'm very happy. Either position, I'd be perfectly happy, because it's what I've wanted to do for as long as I can remember. So mine is. It doesn't work like that for everyone. And know that you can change careers and professions multiple times over the course of your life, and it is okay. You will figure it out. What about you?
But I think the thing about both of you, I could speak about, very truthfully, is that you could tell that you both enjoy what you're doing because of how you do it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, and I'm sure students can tell, the teachers who don't really like being a teacher, or they're just doing it for the paycheck. Or they're kind of checked out, or whatever it is. You're both people that definitely are not in that category, where it's like you go there, you put your best into it. You do really care about like student growth and learning, and nurturing and all that kind of stuff, and helping everybody out. And I feel like I hope I'm the same way, or I might not come across that way all the time. But
no, you are.
We know you are.
No, I know I am, but
even though
sometimes
some students don't think you are.
No, I know they look at me as a pain in the ass.
Well, me as well at times, especially today. I was a bit, but it's things have to get done, right? So we have to. It's frustration.
Well, it's for me. It's the knowledge of, I know what you need to know, and you don't necessarily know what you need to know, or you might think you know enough. So it's kind of like when my kids come up to me and they say, can I have a cookie? And I'm like, no, you're good. Like, you don't need to have the cookie. You need to eat something healthy or whatever. It's I know what you want, and I'm just because I'm not giving it to you doesn't mean I don't care, I don't like you. I'm giving you what you actually would need to grow and be better. It's not like I enjoy giving you tough assessments. It's like, no, I want to see what you're made of. Can you figure this stuff out? I want to challenge you.
Yeah.
It's like, you want me to give you an A. And I remember you saying that. You want me to give you an A. But if I give you an A, that's telling you that you're a perfect writer, that you've done nothing wrong. But if I do that, then how are you going to grow? And how are you going to become better? And how are you going to get to where you want to go?
Right.
So I feel like they take that, take it as like a punch in the gut. But really, it's like, it's a punch in the gut if he just gives you the A.
Well, a lot of them come to me and they go, well, and a lot of parents will say, they've had A's every year in English, and now all of a sudden they have a C. And they think, like, you must be doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what about everyone else has done something wrong?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to fix it.
Yeah.
And that's not an easy thing to do, to be that person.
Right,
So, I mean, I've been teaching, this is my 18th year, and I went right into it, and I went to college knowing I was going to be a teacher. And most of it for me was about the lifestyle. I've mentioned this before, the lifestyle that I could have as a teacher, and the other elements of my life that were important, such as having a family, being able to coach, being around for my kids, having off, when my kids would be off during school years. And I wanted to be like a good dad, a husband, all that kind of stuff too. It wasn't just about the career, it was about my life. So I think people need to start thinking more about that kind of stuff when choosing a career, because you can't just say, I want to do this job, without realizing what that entails for the rest of your life. Does it involve travel? Does it involve whatever?
We're laughing because Ashley just said no free M&Ms, Richie. That's what she said.
No free M&Ms?
That's what she said. It's like, what's going on?
Eminem, like the hip hop artist?
No. But I feel like we're so close to the end, and I feel like it's really important that we get to the things that the students wanted to ask directly, because I feel like some of those questions were so great, and I feel like they need to be addressed.
Yeah, so a lot of students had anxiety about the actual cost of college. So could we just touch on that for a little bit? Because a lot of them are dealing specific about, like, are some colleges free? How much do they cost? Things like that. How do we handle the cost element of college?
Again, and someone in there even said, why is it so expensive? That is a very good question.
Yes.
When it comes down to it, there is financial aid. When you get into your senior year, the FAFSA will open. I believe that it's right now, my brain's not working. I want to say October 1st. So when the FAFSA opens, you go in with your parents or guardians, you have their taxes. It's actually not this past year, it's the prior so that year before. You're going to take those taxes and you're going to go ahead and you're going to complete the FAFSA, and then you're going to complete the HISA. You complete those two, and it's going to actually tell you about your state aid. It's going to give you all the money that you're going to give based on grants and free money, things that you don't have to pay back. And then at the end, after you do all that, then it's going to say, okay, this is the amount that would technically be left. You can go ahead and you can take out loans. But of course, that comes into finding scholarships, things that you can find locally, things that you can find through your school, things at your place of employment, local, anything like that. So again, there are plenty of ways and plenty of functions or things that are in place for you to try to find that aid. And I think that one of the things that was asked was, can you go to school for free? Actually, some people do go for free, right? So based on what your parents or guardians earn as their income, it is possible that you could go for free. And there's also programs such as EOF and EOP and bridge programs that you can apply for that will also support you in doing that.
There's academic scholarships, there's athletic scholarships, depending on what you do and what level and what kind of school you might want to go to. So for example, if you are a good volleyball player, and let's say you're not going to be Division I, but they give you a scholarship to Division II or Division III, and you can do that. So you might not get one for Division I, but you say to yourself, maybe I'm not going to do this professionally. I'd like to do it for Division III. So you start applying to Division III schools, and they say, we would want you to come here. We'll give you a scholarship athletically for coming to this school to play volleyball for us. So think about those kind of things too, as far as like how good are you and how far do you want to take certain things, right? So that's a very significant thing. You also have the option to find scholarships that are even online. Like, you have to do the work for that. Like, no one's going to say, okay, today everyone was going to find a scholarship. So many people do not take advantage of that. Students do not look them up. They don't realize. It could be because you're left-handed, or because
scholarship.com, Go Marry. There's so many places.
You might be the only child. There's a scholarship for that. There's a scholarship for people who are bilingual, or what. It could be so many different things that you don't even realize. But take advantage of those things. And then also, I think a lot of students don't realize this. When you go to college, if you're going to, let's say you want to live on campus, but you don't think you have the money. If you are a student in good standing after your first year, you could actually apply to be a resident advisor, what they call an RA, and be kind of in charge of a floor. And as a result of that, if you get that position and you have recommendation letters that show your good character and you're responsible, they'll give you free room and board and a meal plan. So now you'll live on campus for free just for doing that. And especially, I would say to Ashley, who, if she want to do that, this is what my friend did, one of my good friends. He was a resident advisor, so he lived on campus for free. He had his own room. He had a meal plan. He had part of a scholarship for basketball. And then he became a resident, an RD, resident director, which means he was in charge of a group of buildings. And thank God I knew him, because that's the only reason I had housing my senior year, because he's like, I'm going to take this guy into my house. So I lived with him, and then he turned that into knowing about housing, and then turning into real estate, because he was able to kind of show a sense of, responsibility, and he wasn't necessarily the person who's going to go out every weekend. He was showing that kind of aptitude and showing good standing, and kind of worked his way through. So if you have the interest, if you have the awareness, I helped a lot of students who wanted to do that. They reach out to me. We had a basketball player who reached out to me, who went to Bloomfield. He's like, I want to live on campus. Can you help me with a recommendation to get to the RA position? Absolutely. Here you go. He became an RA. And then it's like, Mom, I want to live on campus. Nah, we can't afford it. I really want to live on campus. And then you're like, well, if you can't afford it, I'm going to get myself there for free. So now you kind of have to let me go a little bit because I just figured out the financial angle, if that's what's the hiccup, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things you can work on campus to pay down certain things. You could be, I know that some people have gone the route of not nursing. What are EMT? You could work as an EMT at some schools, like one weekend a month. And get cut down on tuition with that. So there's so many different options. You have to just advocate for yourself. You have to look for those things at the schools. What availability do you have at what point? Because again, if you can't have a car on campus, maybe you find a school that you might commute to and make it tough for the first year. We had a student who would take a train in to New York from Passaic, and then said it was miserable and the amount of times that it was late because of the snow and the winter. The end of his first year, he goes, I'm applying for resident advisor role, an RA role. He gets it, and he's like, I love it. I love life right now. And then once you get it, it's hard to lose unless you do something stupid.
Yeah,
and then you get it for sophomore year, junior year, senior year, and you're good to go. That saves you
A ton.
a lot of money.
Yeah.
We have a question before we go on to another question. Actually, a really good one. Would it be worth it to go out of the country for a lower college tuition? It's a good question in the sense that, yes, you're correct that other countries, you'd save a bunch of money going there. But I think that there are pros and cons to it, such as, like, let's say that you go abroad and you study something. Transitioning back, if you're planning on coming back to this country, are you going to be able to find the jobs and be as marketable as you need to be based on the degree that you receive being out of the country? So that's one of the things that you have to consider. And also, just like, there's a lot other than just being on that college campus that you're going to have to consider in relation to costs. So again, is it an option? Yes. Can you study abroad for a semester if you're going to a school locally? Absolutely. But you definitely have to do a little bit more research about the costs if you're really considering it.
Some countries are actually free. I think is it something like Denmark, or
If you're a resident.
yeah, if you're a resident.
Live there.
So
That's the other thing I want to go back to as far as colleges are concerned when you're applying. Realize that New Jersey state colleges are cheaper for New Jersey residents, and out of state colleges are more expensive for out of state residents. So if you think about, I want to go to a state school, I want to go to Penn State, you're going to be paying way more money to go to Penn State as a New Jersey resident than you would be from a Pennsylvania resident.
some
So
corporate
Rutgers is a lot cheaper for New Jersey residents, which is why most people go to Rutgers, and that's a good school too. So
some corporations will actually pay for your college as well. If you're kind of hurting. So look for some of those.
well, you could do that retro as well, so you can kind of get into certain things, and they'll say we'll pay off some of your loans or whatever.
brilliant.
You could find programs depending on the career you have, and that'll might work, as well as higher education as well. They'll be like, you want to get your master's, we'll help you with that. So sometimes that's the case too. As far as some other things that are on here, remember, if you feel like you made some mistakes in high school and you don't feel like academically you've done enough,
I know where you're going.
go to a community college, and then you work and get the credits in a community college that'll transfer to a 4-year school, and you get your GPA up, and then you transfer from there, and it's like you didn't miss a beat. You just have to take that extra step.
There's this huge stigma against going to community college, and it's like you are taking those core courses or general courses that you would be taking at, say, William Patterson. You're taking them for less. You're getting them out of the way. Yes, you're getting possibly your associates from a community college, but when you graduate, it's going to say William Patterson, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like like you said, you're not missing a beat. And if you're in the top 10% that's NJ scholars, like, you just go for free. Like, there's so many opportunities and so many things that you can consider. So just make sure that you're weighing everything. And I tell all my students, even if they're planning on going to a 4-year school, apply to community colleges, because you want to look at the money when it comes in, and those different packages start coming in. You want to see what the cost is going to be, and you want to weigh things and figure out what's going to be best for you.
And just a quick point, don't get so caught up with what the school is going to do for you. It's what are you going to do for yourself. So many people think, if I don't get into this school, I'm doomed. And that's not even close to accurate, because you might think of it as, if I go to Cornell, my life will be, just nothing but great, and not realizing that this, it's just going to cost you a bunch of money. It might give you a lot of headaches, whatever. And then, nothing against the school, but like, what are you going to be afterwards? Like, you're going to still have to sit down in front of a person and apply for a job.
Yeah.
And maybe Cornell looks good on the application, but if you can't speak to another person in an interview, you're not getting the job. So it's only going to take you so far. Most people don't even know what the name of like where my school. I went to Moravian College. What the hell is that, right?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, exactly.
I do.
Right. You might have played against them in sports, right? But the point is, like, it doesn't matter. Like, everyone, all the teachers in our school, and you go, oh, that's a good teacher. You don't know where they went.
Correct.
Right. It doesn't even mean anything. Like, oh, you're a good teacher. You're not a good teacher. And one teacher could have went to a school you never heard of. The other one could have gone to a great school, and you go, oh my God, you went to that school. It doesn't mean they're a better teacher necessarily, right? It's what are you doing? What are you bringing to the table? That's what's important. So don't always just chase the name of the school.
Yeah.
That's the reason that they can charge as much as they are.
I
for
went
those schools.
to I went to School of Life.
Yeah.
I went to School
How
of
much?
Life. It was actually cost me a fortune. I'm still paying.
Well, they froze your loan, so you're okay. There's a couple questions I just want to hit on quickly because they're kind of funny. How bad are freshman dorms? I loved the freshman dorms.
I didn't have a problem either.
I love the lifestyle. Are they ideal living situations? No, but that's what you want.
But I feel like they've changed all freshman dorms at all colleges. Like,
Yeah,
we used to have the towers at William Patterson.
Yeah.
I didn't live there, but all my friends did, so I got to go visit like the freshman dorm. But it was like, again, it was like a hot mess.
Yeah.
But now they're like these fantastic,
Yeah,
luxurious
pristine. Yeah.
places, and I'm like, oh, that's great. Go live there.
Yeah, again, you just got to think of it from a lifestyle standpoint. You're talking about a bunch of 18-year-olds, living in the same place with, I'm going to call no adult supervision, but you're figuring things out all together. Like, whether you have communal bathrooms or whatever, you just got to figure things out, and just realize that you're all kind of growing up together and you're learning from different things, and it's trial and error and whatever. But I would never say shy away from a freshman dorm. If I can go back to dorm life, I would in a heartbeat. We talked
Take
about
me with you.
housing. They'll supply housing. I mean, you have to apply for that, for housing. And then even with that, you fill out like a survey to show who you are as a person, and say I'm a smoker, a non-smoker, I'm an athlete, I like music, and they try to pair you up. If you don't know anybody, right, they'll try to put you together either in a pair, or if it's going to be like a 3 people, 4 people, depending on the school. Some schools have all girls dorms, some have co-ed dorms. Some of them are co-ed by room or co-ed by floor. So you can kind of pick what you feel would be most appropriate for you. There's some campuses like where it's like, I want to live on this part of campus or that part of campus. Like Rutgers has different campuses. So you're like, oh, I want to be on this campus. They have the best food, or they have the most, diversity. This one's more for music people. So you kind of feel it out and see like where you might be best. But like my roommate, I didn't know him before I moved in there, and he played basketball. And it was just like, okay, we're cool. Like, and he wound up being a good friend of mine. So, it doesn't matter. And then after that, you can start selecting your roommate and your housing. But they'll supply you housing if you sign up for it. But sometimes it's based on your behavior at the school too. They'll say like, you have the first choice of where you want to live because you had the best behavior. And that's why if I didn't have that kid as my friend, I would have been sleeping on the streets.
I saw 2 really good ones. Someone asked, what are the logistics of college? What would it be for a student joining the military out of high school? Would classes be online, so forth and so on? I thought that was a great one only because somebody's asking about the military, which is another career path that a lot of our kids take after they graduate from our school. So the big thing is making sure that you take the ASVAB. A lot of schools do offer that during senior year, and you can take that as one of your assessments for the military. You can also reach out to a recruiter. And then when it comes down to what it looks like getting classes, once you go through, they will walk you through the process on how you can actually get classes. Again, you get to do that for free because they pay for it. Again, military is a great opportunity to kind of learn a new craft, to go to school, and so many amazing things. Also, I saw a really great question about being an electrician, right? So thinking about that, you could do a couple things. You could go to school for electrical engineering. That person also asked a question about like a great school for electrical engineering. There's plenty, but one of the big ones locally is NJIT. You could go to Rutgers for electrical engineering. There's so many different things. But if you're talking about an electrician, you could also go to the union. And basically, when you're applying to the union, we could go out and we can apply to a union if we really wanted to. All you have to have is your college transcript, so your diploma, you've graduated. You go, you find out when they're offering actual spots. Sometimes there's only 75 of them. That means that you need to be in line. If it says 6 o'clock, you better be there at 4 o'clock,
Yeah.
4:30 before that to try and get an application. You take an assessment, and then if they feel as though you're fit, you go on to the next part, which is an interview. And again, that means that you don't have to have any experience within that trade. You go and you get an apprenticeship and you learn right there, hand in hand with someone who does the job.
Yeah, and the thing is too, I always try to tell people, don't be anxious and worried about college. Be excited about it, or anything for your future, for that matter. Whatever it is, you worked, you grew as a person, as an individual, socially, emotionally. You're kind of going through it, and allow yourself to grow. And then just know, if you go to college or you go to the military, you go into a career path, just say, there's going to be people like me who are there that either can remember figuring it out like I'm going to have to, or can guide me through it. You're going to be fine, but just realize that you should be excited about the idea of taking the steps in your life that are going to be more enjoyable, because you're going to select it yourself, right? So it's not, I have to take all these classes and blah, blah, blah. It's, I get to take what I want to do. I enjoy this, this trade. I enjoy, the military, environment, or I enjoy, the social aspect of college, or the specific coursework that I'm choosing now that's specifically geared towards what I like. So you should be excited about it. And that's kind of our hope today, is just kind of alleviate some of that anxiety, to say you'll figure it out. And if you need more, especially if you're from our school, you can come reach out to us and we can kind of guide you too. But be excited about it. It's something that, and also allow yourself the growth in high school to make sure that you're prepared academically, to know the information, not just have the grades, but to really know it, and to be able to be social and advocate for yourself, that kind of stuff.
Have that self-awareness, work on your like responsible decision-making skills,
Yeah.
like all those things. Like that's what you're working towards, and it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
I've said this story, and I'll make it real quick, but my son went to Rutgers years ago, and he found that it just wasn't for him. He was going through a bit of a rebellious phase, I think he might admit, and he just couldn't take the lectures and all of that. He dropped out. And life has a funny way, when you are determined to kind of figure things out, you will. And next thing you know, he bumped into a guy. He said, "You should look at network engineering," and that was his thing. And now he's earning easily twice the money I am, and I'm earning a pretty decent wage for the average person. So my boy's doing so well. And little shout out to Gavin and his wife. They just had a little baby girl, Gaia. So
great.
I'm a
Congrats.
granddad, hence. So anyway, but
But there's plenty of things you can do while in high school to kind of, get yourself guided up. But like a perfect example, I didn't look into like mostly anything.
yeah.
And I went out fine,
Yeah.
I think. And I didn't do any of like the traditional, like looking at everything. And I had 2 schools on my list. I applied to 2 schools. I visited a handful of schools, but I was like, I'll figure it out. It's fine. Like I was more saying I'll worry about it later. I was like enjoying high school. I'm like, my friends are here. I'll worry about that later. And when later came, I just said, all right, now I got to do this. And I figured it out.
Yeah.
So you got to just give yourself a break sometimes a little bit, and not stress out so much over the academics part of things, because you'll figure it out. Even if you think your grades aren't that great, you can still figure out a way to make it all work out. It's not where you start, it's where you finish, kind of thing. So
Right, the pathways don't always look the same.
Yeah.
Follow your dream, go for what you want, and follow your gut sometimes too.
yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Good to go.
Good.
We could talk about this forever, I feel like.
Ashley said she feels less nervous now. Thank
That's
you
it.
so much for all the advice.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right, folks.
So-
We'll be back next week.
Yeah.
Topic to be determined.
New show.
All right, everybody.
Have
Bye.
a good one.
See you next week.